For those who don't know as well, I'm Mark, I'm lead pastor here, and it is great that you can be here tonight. As we do every 5 or 6 weeks, we have an opportunity to hear from some of our partners in mission, which the Good Neighbourhood Project are, and Simon and Kaylene lead that. Or as well, we hear testimonies, or we have someone from our church share what God is doing in their lives. And tonight we're really thrilled to have Simon and Kaylene. So I reckon we can put our hands together for these guys. Love for you to just introduce yourself and your family and what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And it's a real privilege for us to be here and to share. We're very grateful for this opportunity, and thankful that you guys sit here and listen to us prattle on for a little while. One Hope community has been a very big part of our life ever since we moved here to Geelong, and we were talking this morning about how Mark was the first person to come up and say g'day to us. He couldn't even remember those, so we must have made a real impression there. Thanks, Mark, for that one. But it's been a wonderful community that supported us in our work in Norlane ever since we moved to Geelong from Alice Springs. At the time, we were 8 months pregnant. We didn't have a house, and we had some health issues going on and things like that, and we received a beautiful card from Barrable, it was called back then. We couldn't pronounce the name Barrable, but we did think that maybe this church already speaks in tongues. But now we know how to pronounce the name, and it's been a welcoming environment ever since. So we've got 3 kids now. We did kind of tease them to say they should come up and join us on the couch, but they backed out of that so quickly and almost fled out the door at the next traffic light on the way here. But we've got Barwin, Jarrah and Eden, our beautiful kids and family. And yes, we did name Barwin after the prison, not the river. Sorry, mate. That joke's 15 years old, isn't it, soon? They're great kids. We live in Norlane. It's our neighbourhood. It's our home. We love living there. We've got a cat, a guinea pig, new addition to the family, lots of chickens, ducks and quails. We like to breed quails because, that's what most people do. And we love living out there. We've been living and working and doing community development, faith-based Christian community development for about 20 years now. Kaylene's got a background in public health and nutrition, studied at Bible College. I've got a bit of a background in social work. Yeah, I've just got to stop talking, don't I? Yeah. What about you?
So, Kaylene, I was out visiting you guys during the week, and it was great. I know one of the things I know always get welcomed warmly by the staff, and our very own Jess Box is working out there during the week, and there's others that have worked out at the Avery, which is always great to see them. And Kaylene, I know Simon is a friendly guy, but he is, from what I understand, not great in the kitchen. And every time I go anywhere near that kitchen, you're always busy in there doing something amazing. And we even sometimes get the leftovers here through Jess Box, which is great. And we will share a little bit around what Jess is doing, and as well the church that meet there on Sundays. But just talk a little bit around hospitality and how that's something really close to your heart.
Yeah, I think I feel incredibly privileged that I get to share some of my passions just in my everyday, in the neighbourhood in which I live, and I have a huge heart for hospitality, a huge heart for cooking food, but more than anything, I think seeing people get to enjoy that food together as well. So while I love to cook, I really love to do it alongside my neighbours and to teach them a little bit about food and to enjoy that space together. The amount of times in which I have learnt so much about somebody through chopping carrots in the kitchen, or through even just educating them as to what spinach is, or those kinds of things as well. But it really built some really deep connections and bonds just over me just living out my passion in my community, which has been really good.
That's great. Well, really appreciate you sharing a little bit about you guys, which is really important. We might actually throw to the video, and if it doesn't work, we've got another option, which is fine, and we'll see how we go. Thanks, team.
Yeah, I think a strong community recognises that everyone in that community is valuable, regardless of their skills and their abilities and their backgrounds and obstacles. Everyone's valuable. A strong community recognises that then everyone has a contribution.
I often come for walks down here with my friends. We often end up picking up rubbish because we can't help ourselves. It brings a really good sense of enjoyment and a sense of neighbourhood and community. That makes me really happy.
When the kids were young, we used to take them to, parks, and I enjoyed doing that. But now they're all growing up. I've got grandchildren of my own now to look after them.
I work in the cafe and I serve meals and doing dishes. You can get to laugh more, which is good. It makes me feel happy.
I've been in Norlane on and off for 20 years.
But yeah, we had a choice to move here or to Bendigo, and I was like, hey, Norlane looks pretty good and it's close to Geelong, and then we've just recently become homeowners in the area, so it's really nice.
My wife and I have been living here in Norlane for a year and a half, and then we heard about Norlane Community Initiatives and what they were doing. People that knew each other, we were in proximity to each other and also doing stuff together in the neighbourhood. That was something we wanted to kind of be part of and felt like we could contribute to as well.
I didn't used to smile before I come on Mondays. I wasn't smiling at all. I was more or less sad. But ever since I've been coming every Monday, I've been smiling a lot, which is pretty good.
At tonight's Monday night meal, you'll see people from a range of different age groups. You'll see lots of conversation and laughter. There'll be some good vibes. Yeah, there'll be a kind of a positive spirit here that shows that people value it and they enjoy it.
It's nice to go to a place where people know you and you walk in, oh, how are you today, Cheryl? How you been? It's just comforting to know that there's people there that do know you.
Any neighbour's welcome to come along and contribute in whatever way that they can, so including preparing the food, helping to set up, helping to clean up. And they're little things, but it makes a huge difference for people, and it does contribute to their sense of belonging, their sense that they're part of something.
Before I went to this place, I felt lost. So I had no one to talk to. So ever since I've been going every Monday, I've been talking to more people. So it's pretty good.
Because I live alone, and that's what really helps, knowing there's someone out there if I need someone. It opened a door up for me that I didn't have. I was a pretty lonely type person. So yeah, it's a place where you're known.
A wonderful insight that we've been able to see through that video, and the faces and the stories. And these stories, we're going to hear a few more tonight because they really matter. These guys have recently gone through a bit of a process where they've changed their name from NCI, which you did see on the screens, to the Good Neighbourhood Project. And what I find interesting about that name, I think it really speaks into a vision of how you see the neighbourhood. And well, I'll be honest, I'm someone that's lived in Geelong since the early 90s, and often there's areas of Geelong that can be seen as not good neighbourhoods, and in a way opposite. Would you guys be able to speak into that? Because I think that's really important tonight, that we just put that out there.
Yeah, sure. Definitely often our neighbourhood is not seen as a good neighbourhood. And if you have lived in Geelong for a long time, you do understand there's a lot of stigma around our neighbourhood, and a lot of people ostracised just because they live in this geographical place. And if you read any of the Facebook comments, which maybe we shouldn't read Facebook comments, but they are horrific when it comes to talking about people who live in Norlane. And there's a lot of disadvantage, and there are a lot of issues and a lot of troubles out there in Norlane, and that's for sure. And in fact, Norlane is now considered to be the most, number one, most socially, economically disadvantaged neighbourhood in all of Victoria. And that's right here on our doorstep here in Geelong. And that's a label which we don't like. There's some reality to it, and often statistics don't tell the entire story, so not everybody who lives in Norlane is necessarily disadvantaged, but there is a lot of hardship. There's a lot of poverty, there are a lot of struggles, and we could go through all the different kind of indicators and talk about some of the things that are going wrong in our neighbourhood, and it's really tragic. And we meet a lot of people across the neighbourhood, our neighbours, our friends who are going through incredibly tough times. And you see it etched on their faces, and you see all the kinds of you hear all their kinds of stories, and it does break your heart. And we probably can't tell the amount of funerals that we've been to for our neighbours who have passed away far too young from preventable illnesses and diseases. And so to really try and flip the script, we've been trying to talk about, what's good in our neighbourhood and what's strong in our neighbourhood to fix the things that are wrong. And this idea that, there is a lot of goodness in our neighbourhood still, and there's a lot of good people, there's a lot of good things going on. We really wanted to unearth that and to uncover that and work with that potential. Not ignoring the things that are wrong, but using, what's strong to fix those things.
It's a great story, and we're going to unpack that even more. But I just want us to just to go back a little bit further. And for you guys, and I know we've got a number of people even here that are in their early 20s or 30s, and maybe they're making choices and thinking about life. You guys were in, you talked a bit about Alice Springs, but before that, from what I understand, you were living in the east of Melbourne, in that Bible Belt, growing up in church. What led to some of these decisions for you guys in regards to where you've now ended up?
Yeah, so it's probably it's a big journey, 20-year journey really. But I think one of the things that I noticed as, an 18-year-old finishing school and heading to, I did a year at Bible college, and something that I kind of really noticed was this call to follow Jesus. What does discipleship look like? What does that look like in my everyday now that I'm kind of leaving home and kind of out in the world a bit more? What does that look like? And I think we often get asked about this sense of calling on our lives, right? And I think that's often we can wait maybe for that sense of calling, or that, someone to speak to us, or have a clear voice in our minds as to what it might be, an opportunity that really resonates with us. And we can spend a lot of time waiting, but following Christ, that word following is really it's an action, right? It's something that makes us have to stand up and actually move our feet, to actually do something. And sometimes we can wait a little bit instead of just stepping out and following. And the sense of calling over my life in particular didn't come for a very long time. But I did understand this, what's it going to look like for me to follow Jesus? Where would he be? Where is he? And we hear a lot about how, throughout scriptures over and over again, how Jesus is working amongst those who are experiencing disadvantage, those who are experiencing poverty, or those who are experiencing mourning or loneliness. And so that's where I put myself, is in those places. We physically moved to poor neighbourhoods to put ourselves amongst, just to follow Jesus into those places. And through that, I think, through being in that environment, God has, over the years, has revealed to me, I guess, a bit more of his calling on my life. And I now feel a really strong sense of calling. However, that's not where I started, but that's where we've kind of gotten to.
Yeah, I love that, Kaylene, because I just really hear too that real heart to be an advocate, and I know there's some power dynamics in that as well that do go on, and in all communities, in all workplaces, there can be those power dynamics. But just share a little bit around that, because I find that really interesting.
Me? Yep. Yeah, just touching on as well what Kaylene was saying around the calling. One of the things we often like to say, God's got a calling for your life, but if you haven't worked it out in the meantime, we've got plenty of things you can come and do. So talk to us later. But yeah, and really associated with that, for me, it was about learning about this concept of, especially in the Gospels, I was really starting to struggle with being a Sunday Christian and what was I doing throughout the rest of the week? And so I really dug deeper into the Gospels, and what really emerged for me was this concept of the centre and the margins. And like Kaylene was saying, how we follow a Jesus who constantly goes to the margins of society, goes and spends time with the lost, the forgotten, the people who are needing healing, the people who have been ostracised and there's all this stigma around. He spends so much time with them, loving them, showing them compassion, reaching out to them, healing them, feeding them, and spending time with them. And then on the flip side, he also spends a lot of time in the places, what we would probably call the places of power or the centre, where maybe like the synagogues, Jerusalem, the temple, rich people's houses. And often he'd go there and he would spend, and often he'd be criticised. And often he would have tough questions thrown at him and he would answer them back in really smart ways, and often trying to, some people might want to kill him at the end of it, but that's what he did. And then he would go back to the margins and spend time at the margins and what we see then happening is a lot of this sense of salvation and liberation happening at the margins. We think it's meant to happen in the places of power and the corridors of power and the big places. We think that's where we need to go and we think that's where it's all happening. But in the Gospels, it's all really happening on the margins, in the desert, in the places on the edge of society. And so, we find ourselves sitting there on the margins, chatting with people, spending time with people, and then also looking at our own privilege and the power in our own lives. And we can also look at the centre and margins from a personal perspective in our own lives, in our workplaces, our schools, our unis. Where are the margins in those places, and also where are the centres of power? And there are things we need to do in each of those places as well.
So with that, you mentioned about what we can do. And I know you shared a bit this morning around there's 3 things, and that for me was a great take home that I'd love for you to share again.
Sure. So, we really focus our work, I guess, on 3 areas. One being place. So we really do draw like a circle around our patch, and our neighbourhood of Norlane is our place, and we really look at all the things that exist in that place and all maybe the things that don't exist in that place. So like the bike paths or the lack of bike paths, or like the footy club, or the places in which people might naturally gather, whether that's like the pub, for example, that's a big place in our community, or or the local shopping centres and those kinds of things where people are naturally gathering. What are the strengths of our place and what are the potential and opportunities there. We also look at all the people that inhabit that place as well. And so often I think like there's nearly 10,000 people in our community, and so each one of those people have something that they can contribute to our community. And when we really look and gather the strengths that we all can offer together, we can the solution, I guess, to a lot of the issues within our community exists within the people of our neighbourhood. So we always, really identify and help other people to identify the strengths that they can contribute as well. And then the third one is that sense of power. So we do spend a lot of time really looking at, some of the things that people experience in our community is because of, their own personal circumstances. But some of the things that people experience in our community is actually completely out of their control and has a lot to do with, systems and societal structures and things that really kind of hold them back a little bit. So we do ask those questions as to how, who holds the power, I guess, and what can we do? How can we advocate for our community in those spaces as well?
It's wonderful. I love hearing you share about that. It actually really has an impact on me, and I think a lot about my own situations in different workplaces, different even social events or things that I can attend, and even perceptions on different people and areas. And I think that's wonderful. So for you guys, there's a real heart for even that spiritual formation. I know that's something that is really important to you and your team and what God's doing in you guys. Because again, there's tasks and jobs that you can do, but there's something really rich when God actually gets a hold of our lives. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's right. There's so much need out there. There's so many things going on in this world, so many crises. It's just rolling crisis after crisis, and it's easy to become overwhelmed by all the things and to get anxious about that and work out, what can I do? I'm just one person in the midst of everything that's going on. And it's a lot of the reason why we did choose to kind of base ourselves in a particular place, a particular patch, and say, all right, we're going to try and be present in this place, which we really believe God's called us to be, and that God loves this place. And some people say, what good can ever come out of Norlane? But we reckon a lot of good can come out of a place like Norlane. And we really decided to buckle in there, say this is a place which we can make a real difference and have a real impact. And that's been an extremely helpful way of understanding and framing what we do. But when you do that, you also need to have a really deep sense of spirituality and deep connection to God, and practices which help kind of move you through that and help you stay grounded in the midst of all that, and a strong prayer life, a strong worshiping community, and also one of the recent things we've discovered more so is this idea of Sabbath and having times of rest. And we always talk about Sabbath in the church and so forth, but I'm not sure if we even actually practice it properly, do we? Taking a whole day, like we take from Friday night through to Saturday night for rest. We turn off our phones. Mark tries to call us to organise, come in and talk and things like that. We don't answer the phone, much to his dismay. You are not allowed to talk to Mark Gellie during lockdown. And we bake heaps of great food, big, huge, humongous cookies, and settle down, listen to some music, and we do lots of fun things as a family and really just rest in that space, and that just helps us recuperate. We often go for walks and spend time with God and pull out the journal and really take that day seriously. So that's a practice which we've found extremely helpful and for so many different reasons.
There's actually, even recently, we've discovered that there's a lot of studies around people who practice Sabbath living longer lives. As particularly, it's something that the Seventh-day Adventists usually are pretty good at. And it's shown that the Seventh-day Adventist communities, like in general, are more likely to hit 100 than people who don't practice Sabbath.
Excellent. Well, we might have to kick that in, I think, this weekend. Really good stuff. I really love what you guys are sharing. So again, when it comes to what you're doing, I know there's a fantastic new thing happening out at Norlane, which I know our very own Jess Box, who I mentioned earlier, is involved as a youth worker, and the Norlane Church meet every Sunday as an outreach to the community, and they're meeting on Sundays Sunday afternoon from 4 to 5. So that is a great way you can get involved at that community and connecting through that way. But there's other ways as well. So we're talking, that's Norlane Church, but there's the good neighbourhood project which we're talking to you guys about tonight. What's some ways that people can get on board and get involved with that?
Yeah, like I said before, we have heaps going on. And there's so many great ways people can get involved. We actually run 2 sites out in Norlane. We've got the site on Robin Avenue, which is at, it's got the Avery Cafe, which Kaylene spends a lot of her time there. There's a community garden there. We have a community meal on a Monday night there. Lots of craft and activities and so forth. I spend a lot of time over at a place called Lebuan Square, which is a local shopping centre in Norlane. That's really run down, lots of roller doors, graffiti, people hanging out, drinking all day in the square there. We're trying to revitalise that space, create a sense of safety, bring people together as a community. So we have another small little cafe drop-in space there, an op shop. Just across the road there, we have an urban farm for anyone who likes growing food together. Last summer, we grew about 300 kilograms of food for the neighbourhood, which we sent over to Kaylene to cook up to try and feed 5,000 people or so. But we have a great team, about 50, 60 local leaders, volunteers who are all running all these variety of community programs, and we need people to come alongside them and help mentor and spend time with them. And they're reaching hundreds, if not thousands of people throughout the week through all the different initiatives and projects and sites. We're also rebuilding the old Norlane Baptist Church out there at Spurwin Avenue, which has taken about 8 years so far. Some people might remember we had an arson attack about 8 years ago. So we've kind of gotten around to eventually getting to the point of fixing that up. It takes a long time to raise money to fix up a building. But one of our biggest needs at the moment is people who can help cook, cater or work in the cafe. Our community meal on the Monday night, we used to get about 50, 60 people along to. Now we're getting 80, 90, 100 people along to.
Yeah, I think we've got a bit of some images as well. So that's the Avery and your team, I think, will flick through. That'd be great,
That's
guys.
where Jess works, at the Avery Cafe. Come and get a coffee from Jess.
Yeah.
She even does like a little prayer sign on the coffee for you.
Amazing.
So
the
the Monday night meal, we've actually had to shut it down because we have too many people coming.
We've had to pause it. We haven't shut it down.
I was being dramatic, trying to shut it down. We put it on pause for a little while we reassess. There's only a couple of people left in our neighbourhood who can really cook for 80, 90, 100 people. So if anyone does have some cooking skills, we'd love to see you there. We're just going to work out how to really make that a really great environment, how to make sure it's safe. We're running out of seats and all those kind of things. It's a good problem to have. Looks like you're about to jump up and say something. No, keep going. So that's a really great way to help out. Also, if you... I've got any kind of trade background, we're always in the need for people to come and help fix things which keep breaking down. I'm hopeless at it. Anyone who likes growing food, we'd love you to come and help us grow food. But also we just don't kind of want people to come along and just serve and just help out and, cook meals and do dishes. We're really up for people to come along and get alongside folks in Norlane and build relationships and develop friendships and create just journey alongside people whilst we're doing the natural, everyday, ordinary things of life.
And I know that's something that really comes out whenever I've chatted to you both, is those stories. He's been able to really connect and hear people's stories. And you guys do such an incredible job with the team to really be a listening ear and really encourages in that space. I'm just going to just throw to you, Kaylene, on something, because I think this is something, again, you touched on in your early 20s when you were exploring what God was saying to you, because I think I love what you said about that sense of being active and what that actually looks like. And even tonight, I know in our worship time we sang those words, if you're calling, we're coming, we're not walking, we're running. And even as I was worshipping and just really praying to God about that, even for my life and others' lives, I just had a real picture, actually, that often we can sing that song and we can sing with gusto, that sense of feeling like we're calling, God's calling us, we're not walking, we're running. But it just I had a great sense. For some people, it feels like you're just on a treadmill inside your room. That you're just keen to be set apart and marked by God, but you just feel like you're just on a treadmill and you're just not going anywhere. And I know even amongst many of our young adults are quite active, and some of them even recently did a few marathons and half marathons. And one of the things I find amazing when I chat to them about that afterwards is they talk about they're sore and all that stuff, but they talk about the places that they get to see. Some of them have been up to Queensland, and some of them have even gone down to Ballarat recently, and they've come back, wow, Ballarat's beautiful. Who would have thought? Hey, Sal. But what I think really strikes me in thinking about our calling is that so often we need to actually be willing to step outside. This sense of feeling like we're running towards God, but actually being willing to go. And it talks about that, the Great Commission, therefore go and make disciples. Just for you in your period of your life where that was just something that wasn't easy, but you went. I'd love for you to share a bit more about that.
Yeah, it really wasn't easy for me, actually. I think my family is quite... would have preferred, I think, that I stayed in my little privileged bubble, I think. And actually for me, stepping outside and really kind of going, actually, you know what, I want to live being a disciple, I want to live that every day. I want to really follow Christ. And for me, that actually cost me my family for a little bit of time as well. They didn't really understand why I would move from our lovely, very flashy mansion with the tennis court and the swimming pool into a community like Doveton, which we did in Melbourne at the time, which is a very similar community to Norlane. There was a lot of lack of understanding, I think, in that space. But I think it's interesting. I remember when I was driving literally from my house, my family home, down the highway to my new home in Doveton, I just really felt God kind of really say to me, you've heard and you've come, and I will honour that. And he, like that song, "You're Good," like that we sang, that we also sang this morning as well, has actually been a bit of a mantra for me over the last few years. But I honestly feel that God's goodness is like completely like been part of my life every single day. And I think that and His honoured. I feel like he's honoured my faithfulness, if that makes sense. And not that I'm always faithful. I'm always having to respond to God's calling over my life as well. Don't know if that answers your question.
And I'd love for you tonight as we close, and as Simon mentioned, there's opportunities as well to come and have a chat. These guys will be out in the foyer having some dumplings and being a part of what's happening out there. But please come and have a chat. Opportunities for you to participate and get involved. But as well, I'd love, even in this moment, Kaylene, if you could just pray, because I have a great sense that you may be sitting there tonight and maybe God is stirring something in you. That yes, you hear these stories and you think, oh, that's maybe good for that person. But maybe God's really encouraging you to step out, just like Kaylene did in her early 20s. And actually, yes, God is calling, but what does that look like for you? And again, I'm not saying I've got the answer, but again, just being able to just be aware of God's presence, being able to open your heart. And that is sometimes the first step. I won't say sometimes, it is the first step. Just opening your heart and saying, God, are you calling? Well, what does this look like for me? Does that mean I might have to leave my comfortable house in Geelong, my safe environment that I'm in right now? Maybe God is calling and tapping onto that. So I'd love for you to pray into that space for us tonight. Thanks, Kaylene.
Father, we really thank you that you go before us, that you walk beside us as well, and that you guide us. We thank you that your presence is everywhere all at once in this city, and that there are so many opportunities for us to join in with the work that you are doing, and that you love every inch of this city, even the places that look a bit dark and look a bit scary. We thank you that you love every single person in this city, even those that might look like they don't quite deserve it, because at times we also don't quite deserve it. And Lord, I really, I thank you that you died, that you gave your life for every single person in this community, every single person in Norlane, every single person who lives in the entire of Geelong and the world. And we thank you for the gift of that love. May you give us the courage to share that love with other people and to receive that love from other people as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
I hope you're really encouraged by Simon and Kaylene there. Just a note to say, your circumstances might be really different to theirs, or it might be really similar. You might actually find yourself in Geelong and keen to hear more about their work, or maybe even be part of what they're doing in Norlane and that community there. Wherever you fall, if you feel like God's stirring your heart and you're like, actually, I'd like to do something meaningful in the community that I'm part of, and you feel we can help with that, again, just get in touch via the website, and whether we connect you with Simon and Kaylene, or it's just a chat or a cuppa, and encourage each other in how we can live out our faith, that would be amazing. So until next time, have a great week, take care, look forward to seeing you soon.